In my first life, a refrigerator fell from a moving truck and killed me. In my second, an awakening crystal announced that I had only 10 mana, and 300 future mages laughed before the echo died. I stood with my palm pressed against the blue crystal and watched the number glow above my head. 10. It was a very small number for something that had just destroyed my future. The laughter rolled across the academy courtyard. Some students covered their mouths. Most did not bother. A boy in a red coat laughed so hard that he had to lean on his servant. His name was Dax. His result had been 320, the highest of the morning. He wore that number like a second coat, and both coats looked expensive. 10, Dax said. My bath heater has 12. The crowd laughed again. I removed my hand from the crystal. A thin crack ran beneath its surface. I had felt a second pulse before the number appeared, but Instructor Havel stepped between me and the crystal before I could test it again. The result is final, he said. The testing rune cracked, Lena said from the line of rune students. She had dark hair tied behind her head and ink on 3 fingers. She was the only person who had watched the crystal instead of my face. Havel did not look at her. The result is final. Dean Moren descended from the marble platform. He carried my scholarship badge between 2 fingers. I had earned it by placing first in the written examination. My room, meals, books, and combat lessons all depended on that small piece of silver. Moren held it up so everyone could see. Starfall Academy cannot spend a royal scholarship on a student with 10 mana, he announced. Nolan is removed from the combat division. His room will be returned to the academy tonight. The laughter stopped for a moment. Even people who enjoyed a public fall liked to hear the body hit the ground. I placed first in theory, I said. A sword without a blade can have a beautiful handle, Moren replied. It is still not a sword. That sounded wise enough to impress the front row. It also meant nothing. He replaced my silver badge with a square token made of dull bronze. A furnace was stamped on its face. The maintenance division needs hands. You may work for food and apply again next year. Dax raised his hand. Dean, will he need 10 years to gather enough mana for the application spell? The crowd laughed for the 3rd time. Dax bowed as if he had just defeated a dragon. He had defeated 1 sentence, and it had not fought back. Havel opened the starter spell chest. Every successful student had already chosen a slate. Dax held Flame Spear. Other students had taken Ice Shield, Wind Step, Stone Skin, and healing spells. Only 1 gray slate remained at the bottom. Havel tossed it at my feet. Maintenance students receive Candle Spark, he said. It costs 1 mana and produces enough heat to light a wick. Try not to conquer the kingdom before lunch. This time I picked up the slate before the laughter began. The instant my fingers touched it, a calm voice spoke inside my head. It told me that a hidden class had recognized me. The class was called Infinite Reserve. I kept my face still. The voice gave me one rule. For every 100 units of mana I truly spent, my maximum reserve would rise by 1 forever. That was all. No great weapon appeared in my hand. No ancient dragon offered to become my pet. My robe remained cheap, my stomach remained empty, and Dax was still laughing like a horse that had discovered money. But one rule of this world mattered more than all the others. A person's maximum mana never changed after awakening. The average first-year student had 200. A classroom instructor usually had between 900 and 1,500. Even an elixir worth 5,000 gold added only 1 unit, and most buyers needed a healer afterward. I had just been offered the same increase for spending 100 mana. My problem was that I owned 10. That was not a tragedy. It was arithmetic. I needed to empty my reserve 10 times. Havel pointed toward a low stone building behind the main hall. The furnace shift begins now. If you leave early, you lose your meal token. How much does the shift pay? I asked. He blinked. He had expected anger, tears, or a speech about justice. Numbers disappointed him. 8 silver. And workers may use the recovery basin? His eyes narrowed. If the supervisor allows it. I put the bronze token in my pocket. Then 8 silver is enough. Dax stepped into my path. Up close, the gold thread on his coat was thick enough to tow a cart. You really plan to stay? For lunch, at least. I will give you 20 silver if you survive 1 full day without begging to leave. And if I stay? You get the money. If you leave, you clean my practice room for a month. 3 students immediately volunteered to witness the wager. Dax enjoyed an audience. I enjoyed 20 silver. Agreed, I said. The furnace room was hot enough to cook a chicken that entered with bad intentions. Copper pipes covered the walls. Red stones pulsed behind iron grates. At the center stood a round recovery basin filled with pale blue water. Pavo, the old supervisor, looked at my bronze token and then at my clean academy robe. Another fallen prince? A fallen refrigerator was involved once. I would rather not discuss it. He scratched his gray beard. Can you light a maintenance wick? I pressed the spell slate to my forehead. The spell entered my memory like a word I had always known. I pointed at the nearest wick. A thread of orange light jumped from my finger. It made a soft pop. The wick began to burn. 1 mana disappeared from my reserve. The hidden voice counted it. I lit 9 more wicks. After the 10th, the warmth left my body. My knees weakened. The furnace room seemed to move half a step away from me. Pavo caught my shoulder. Easy. Empty mana makes the body cold, even beside a furnace. Sit down before the floor attacks you. I sat beside the recovery basin and put both hands into the water. Blue light climbed my arms. 10 minutes later, my reserve was full again. Lena entered carrying a box of cracked rune plates. She saw me stand, light 10 more wicks, and sit again. Why are you emptying your entire core? She asked. I wanted to test something. Most people test things once. Most people had more than 10 mana. Pavo laughed into his beard. Lena did not. She placed her box down and took a measuring prism from her pocket. Your hands are shaking. That means they still work. That is not how healing works. Good. I am not a healer. She held the prism near my chest. It showed 10. Then she watched me repeat the cycle. 10 sparks. 10 minutes in the basin. 10 more sparks. The work was not heroic. I lit furnace wicks, warmed frozen valves, and burned dust from old runes. Every spark made the hidden count rise by 1. At 50 spent mana, my teeth began to chatter. At 70, Pavo gave me a cup of salted broth. It tasted of onions, pepper, and something green that had lost an argument with a knife. The heat settled in my stomach and stopped my fingers from going numb. At 90, Lena placed the measuring prism on the table and leaned closer. If you collapse, I am calling Havel. If you call Havel, I may collapse on purpose. She almost smiled. I raised my finger and cast Candlespark for the 100th time. The flame was no larger than before. The voice inside my head confirmed that I had spent 100 mana. My maximum reserve increased by 1. Warmth appeared in my chest. Lena's measuring prism changed from 10 to 11. She stared at it. Then she wiped its surface with her sleeve and measured me again. 11. Pavo looked over her shoulder. Is it broken? No, Lena whispered. Am I broken? I asked. Probably, but not in the way Havel thinks. That was the first time anyone in this world saw the truth. Lena locked the furnace room door. Maximum mana does not increase. Mine did. I can see that. I am trying to decide whether to scream. Please wait until I reach 12. She stared at me for another breath. Then she moved the broth closer and said, Drink first. If you die at 11, the story will sound stupid. I drank. The 11th point gave me a small advantage. Each cycle now produced 11 sparks instead of 10. The recovery basin filled whatever my maximum happened to be. I did not need another 10 complete cycles to reach the next threshold. I needed to spend only 100 more in total. The growth was slow. It was also permanent. By late afternoon, I had cleaned every wick in the furnace hall. Pavo had to bring me boxes of old heating beads just to give my sparks somewhere useful to go. At 189 spent mana, Dax arrived with Havel and half the first-year class behind him. Still here? Dax asked. I was waiting for my 20 silver. He glanced at my pale face and the empty cups of broth. The day is not over. Havel is holding the precision trial now. Maintenance students are allowed to participate if they can stand. Havel smiled. He wanted me to fail in front of the same crowd twice. Pavo handed me my 8 silver wages. His rough palm stayed over the coins for a moment. You completed the shift, he said loudly. No begging, no leaving, pay the boy. The students looked at Dax. Dax's smile became stiff. He dropped 20 silver into my hand. The sound of the coins was small, but the crowd heard it. 28 silver, I said. A productive first day. You are still last in the academy, Dax replied. Then everyone above me should be safe. That answer followed us into the trial hall. By the time I reached the center platform, students in the back row were already repeating it. The precision trial used 12 glass lamps. Each lamp needed exactly 1 mana. Too little did nothing. Too much shattered the glass. The exercise was designed for control, not strength. A passing student had to light 10 lamps. Dax walked first. He did not know Candle Spark. Flame Spear consumed 40 mana, so he tried to divide 1 cast among the lamps. 6 lit. 2 cracked. 1 exploded and covered his red coat with black soot. The hall became silent. Then someone laughed. It was Pavo. His laugh sounded like a bag of stones rolling downstairs. The students joined him. Dax stood beneath a cloud of smoke, looking like an expensive tomato left too close to a stove. Havel hurried forward. This trial is beneath a combat student. Dax's score will not affect his rank. Of course, I said. The lamps attacked without warning. Lena coughed into her hand. I heard the laugh she tried to hide. Havel pointed at me. Light 10 and finish this. I stepped before the first lamp. Candle Spark cost 1 mana. The spell that had made the whole academy laugh was made for this row of glass. I lit the first lamp, then the second. By the 5th, the crowd had stopped whispering. By the 10th, every student knew I had passed. My lifetime count stood at 199 and 1 mana remained. I lit the 11th lamp. At that exact moment, my total expenditure reached 200. The voice confirmed another permanent increase. My maximum became 12, and 1 fresh unit appeared inside my empty core. A sharp breath moved through the hall. Havel grabbed the measuring prism from the judge's table. Impossible. I pointed at the final lamp and spent the fresh unit. The 12th lamp lit. Every lamp burned in a perfect row. For 1 long second, no one spoke. Then the ranking crystal above the arena changed my recorded reserve from 10 to 12. The shout that followed was louder than the morning laughter. Students stood on benches. Rune apprentices pushed toward Lena to ask whether the crystal had failed. 3 instructors cast their own measurement spells. Every spell returned the same answer. 12. Dax wiped soot from his face. He cheated. With what? Lena asked. A hidden third hand? The morning crystal recorded 10. And the evening crystal records 12. That is why everyone is shouting. Havel seized my wrist and pressed the prism against it hard enough to hurt. The blue number remained 12. Maximum mana cannot grow, he said. Then your academy has a problem, I replied. Either the morning test was wrong, or the rule is wrong. Both answers were dangerous for him. The crowd understood. Faces turned from me to Havel. The laughter had moved again, and this time it was not mine. Dean Morin entered through the upper door. He had come to witness my failure. Instead, he found 12 burning lamps, a blackened Dax, and 300 students asking why a scholarship had been removed after a broken test. Morin raised both hands. Until the matter is examined, Nolan will receive provisional student status. The ranking board changed beside him. My name moved from the gray maintenance list to the bottom of the first-year board. I was still last. But I was on the board. The trial judge awarded me 2 silver for a perfect precision score. I now had 30 silver, access to the furnace basin, and 2 more mana than I had possessed that morning. Power, money, and status had all moved in the correct direction. I did not need them to move quickly. I needed them to keep moving. Pavo served dinner in the furnace kitchen. He filled a deep bowl with beef stew. Thick brown gravy covered soft pieces of meat, sweet carrots, and onions cooked until they almost disappeared. He cut a round loaf in half, spread yellow butter across the hot center, and pushed it toward me. The bread cracked at the edge and soaked up the gravy. After a day of emptying my core, it tasted better than any feast I remembered from my first life. Lena sat across from me with her measuring prism beside her spoon. You checked me 6 times during dinner, I said. 7. Did my reserve shrink? No. Then eat before the stew gets cold. She tore off a piece of bread. What happens after another 100? 13. And after 10,000? 112. Her hand stopped. The academy would tear itself apart to control that. Then we should not tell the Academy. Pavo set a cup of honey tea beside each of us. I heard nothing. I am old. My ears retired before I did. Warm steam rose between us. Outside the kitchen, students crowded around the ranking board and repeated the story of 12 lamps. Every version became larger. In one version, I had lit 50 lamps. In another, Dax had exploded. That version spread fastest. I finished the last piece of bread and allowed myself to feel safe for exactly one breath. Then, every blue rune in the furnace room turned black. A bell rang beneath the academy. It was not loud, but the sound passed through stone and bone. The measuring prism beside Lena's hand spoke in a voice that everyone in the building could hear. Unregistered change in innate mana detected. Capital audit initiated. Pavo slowly lowered his cup. Lena looked at me. Above us, 300 students fell silent around the ranking board. I had needed 1 day to gain 2 mana. The capital had needed 1 second to notice. I woke the next morning beneath a shelf of coal gloves with 12 mana and no bed. My scholarship room had already been given to another student. Pavo had found 2 flour sacks, 1 old blanket, and a storage room beside the furnace kitchen. The sacks were softer than the marble courtyard, and none of them laughed, so I considered the arrangement an improvement. The black runes had returned to blue during the night. The capital audit had not returned my room. I folded the blanket and found Lena asleep at the kitchen table. Her head rested on an open rune book. The measuring prism was still in her hand. Pavo placed a pan over the stove. She spent half the night proving your result was not an error. Did she succeed? She proved the same impossible thing 14 different ways. Then she became angry at mathematics. Lena lifted her head. A line from the book had printed itself across her cheek. I was not angry. You called the founding laws of magic a pile of dead fish, Pavo said. That was a technical description. Pavo fried potato cakes in butter until their edges became crisp and brown. He added 2 eggs, a spoon of sour cream, and slices of smoked sausage. The smell filled the small kitchen and made my empty storage room feel less important. I ate slowly. The potato cakes cracked under my fork. Steam escaped from the soft centers. The sour cream melted into the butter, and the sausage carried enough pepper to wake every part of me that the cold of mana exhaustion had put to sleep. Lena watched my face instead of the prism this time. Does emptying your core always hurt that much? She asked. Yes. Then why do it again? Because 12 is larger than 10. That is a terrible answer. It is also correct. Pavo poured hot apple tea into 3 cups. The boy may be broken, but he is broken in a straight line. Someone hammered on the outer door. Havel entered without waiting. 2 academy guards followed him. Dax stood behind them in a new red coat. The old one had probably lost its battle with soot. Havel held out his hand. Furnace pass. I finished chewing before I answered. Why? The recovery basin is academy property. Until the capital audit is complete, you are forbidden from using any restoration equipment. He had understood the same thing Lena had understood. If I could repeat yesterday, 12 would not remain 12. I placed the bronze pass on the table. Havel smiled. You will also attend today's endurance trial. Refusal will end your provisional status. You removed my recovery access and entered me into an endurance trial. Correct. That seems very safe. Your safety became a capital matter last night. There was a reason behind his anger. If my first test had been false, Havel had removed a scholarship on a broken result. If my reserve had truly grown, his lessons about fixed capacity were wrong. He needed me to fail before either answer became official. Dax leaned against the doorway. The trial has 100 moving targets. I will wager 1 gold that you cannot hit half. 1 gold equaled 100 silver. It was more than 3 months of furnace wages. You lost 20 silver yesterday, I said. I brought more money. That does seem easier than bringing judgment. Pavo made a choking sound over his tea. Dax's ears turned red. Do you accept? Yes. Havel took my furnace pass and left. Dax followed him after placing a gold coin on the table. Lena set the measuring prism beside it. You have 12 mana, she said. The trial begins afternoon. Natural recovery will not let you spend enough to change that. The recovery basin is forbidden. All academy restoration equipment is forbidden. Pavo turned a potato cake in the pan. Good thing the kitchen heating line belongs to the Royal Food Office. Lena and I looked at him. He pointed his fork toward the rear wall. 400 ignition beads failed last winter. The Academy never paid anyone to replace them. Every bead needs one small flame to test it, and the kitchen line has its own recovery coil. How much does the work pay? I asked. Lena covered her eyes. Pavo grinned. 90 silver if you finish today? The heating tunnel ran beneath the kitchens. It was narrow, dusty, and warm. 4 copper lines stretched farther than I could see. Small clay beads sat along each pipe. Most were dark. Pavo fitted a recovery band around my wrist. It belonged to the food office, not the academy. The band drew mana from the boiler whenever my reserve fell below half. It restores 10 mana every minute, he said. Usually a worker has enough reserve to test a whole line without noticing. I had 12. I noticed everything. I touched the first bead and cast Candle Spark. The bead glowed red. 1 mana left my core. The hidden count rose. I moved to the next. At first, I expected only combat spells to count. The class had said truly spent mana, but systems enjoyed small words with large teeth. When my total reached 300, the voice confirmed another permanent increase. My maximum became 13. I stopped in the tunnel. Lena almost walked into my back. What happened? Paid work counts. The measuring prism showed 13. She looked down the tunnel at the hundreds of unlit beads. You can earn money while increasing your reserve. That is better than earning pain for free. Pavo slapped the copper pipe with delight. Dust fell on his beard. The academy threw you into maintenance, and maintenance became your training hall. Havel has the luck of a man who steps around a puddle and falls into a well. We continued. Every 12 or 13 sparks emptied me. The recovery band pushed warmth back into my core. The repeated cold made my muscles ache, but the breakfast held steady in my stomach. At 400 total spent, my maximum became 14. At 500, it became 15. The pipe behind us glowed in a straight red line. Kitchen workers opened the tunnel gates and cheered each time another oven returned to life. They did not know why my reserve changed. They only knew one maintenance student had restored equipment that had been broken for a year. News traveled upward with the smell of fresh bread. Students began gathering at the tunnel entrance. Some had mocked me the day before. Now they counted each row of beads and watched Lena's prism. 15, someone whispered. He had 10 yesterday. Maybe he eats mana. Then do not stand too close. The crowd moved one step backward. I lit the final bead just before noon. My total expenditure reached 600. My maximum rose to 16. Pavo paid me 90 silver in front of the kitchen staff and the watching students. I added the coins to yesterday's 30. 120 silver. Power and money had grown before lunch. Reputation had followed the bread. Havel arrived when the workers began applauding. He looked at the 4 glowing lines, then at my wrist. You violated my order. You forbade academy equipment, Lena said. The recovery band is registered to the Royal Food Office. Here is the seal. She held the brass seal close enough for every student to see. Havel's mouth became a thin line. The endurance trial begins in 1 hour. Then I have time to shop, I said. The academy supply counter sold weak mana tonics for 10 silver each. Each bottle restored 10 mana. They tasted like bitter grass mixed with old coins, and the label warned that more than 12 in one day could poison the liver. I bought 10. The clerk counted my 100 silver twice. Maintenance students did not usually buy training supplies. Half the students from the tunnel watched me place the bottles into my bag. He spent almost everything, one said. On weak tonics, another replied. He could have bought one good spell. They still thought my greatest problem was weakness. My greatest problem was supply. I entered the endurance hall with 20 silver in my pocket, 10 tonics in my bag, and 16 maximum mana. All 100 first-year combat students filled the stone benches. More watched through projection crystals in the dining hall and the central courtyard. Yesterday, I had been entertainment. Today, I was a question. 100 bronze discs moved along rails around the arena. A clean hit made a disc turn blue. Excess force made it turn red and removed a point. A miss removed 2 points. The trial lasted 40 minutes. A central restoration pillar released 10 mana each minute. Students with large reserves ignored it. For me, it was a river trying to enter a cup. Dax stepped onto the opposite platform. He had learned a smaller spell overnight. Ember Dart cost 8 mana. "I will hit all 100, he announced. The crowd cheered. His family had sponsored the projection crystals, and the crystals seemed to like him. Havel raised a silver whistle. "Begin." Dax fired first. 8 red darts crossed the hall. 6 hit. 2 struck the wall. The discs spun faster. I raised one finger. Candle Spark traveled only a short distance, but the first rail passed close to my platform. I waited until a disc entered range and touched it with one orange thread. Blue. The next disc came 4 breaths later. Blue. Dax filled the air with red fire. His darts were fast and impressive. They also carried 8 times more mana than the targets needed. Several discs flashed red. The score above him rose and fell like a drunk bird. Mine moved slowly in one direction. After 16 hits, my core emptied. The restoration pillar refilled 10. I drank one tonic and returned to 16. The tonic was cold and bitter. My stomach objected. I told it we had paid 100 silver, and continued. At 100 spent mana during the trial, my lifetime total reached 700. My maximum became 17. The public measuring crystal changed with it. The arena erupted. Dax looked at the number and missed 3 discs. "Watch your side," I said. "Do not speak to me." "That works too." He fired a wide burst. 5 discs turned red. One dart hit the hem of his new coat. He slapped it out while the front benches laughed. Havel blew the whistle. "Nolan is using unauthorized tonics." Lena stood beside the judge's table. "The rules allow 12. He purchased 10 from the academy counter. The receipt is here." She raised the paper. The projection crystal enlarged it above the arena. The laughter turned toward Havel. I drank my second tonic. At 800 lifetime mana spent, my maximum became 18. My score reached 50. Dax had promised I would not hit half. The 50th disc turned blue in complete silence. Then every witness looked at the gold coin on the judge's table. Pavo had placed himself in the first row. He tapped the coin with one thick finger. "That belongs to the maintenance boy now." Dax's jaw tightened. "The trial is not over." "The wager is," I said. The remaining targets moved faster. I could no longer wait for the nearest rail. I climbed onto the narrow edge of the platform and timed each spark as the discs crossed. One miss would cost 2 points. A fall would cost several bones. The crowd began counting aloud. 51, 52, 53. My hands shook from repeated exhaustion. I drank another tonic. The bitterness coated my tongue. Warmth returned to my chest. At 900 lifetime mana spent, my maximum became 19. Students stopped counting the targets and began counting my reserve. 19. It changed again. 3 times today. Havel said it was impossible. Havel heard every word. Dax had 74 points. I had 70. He still held the lead, but smoke rose from both sleeves of his coat. His casting hand trembled. He had more than 300 mana, yet Ember Dart demanded control he had never needed to learn. "You are still weaker than me," he said between breaths. "Yes." The easy answer disturbed him more than an insult. "Then stop acting calm." "No." He launched 12 darts at once. 7 struck, 3 missed, 2 hit the same disc and turned it red. His score fell to 73. I touched 4 targets with 4 sparks. 74. The hall shook with noise. Havel ordered the rails to maximum speed. The judge beside him objected, but Havel used his instructor seal. Bronze discs became blurred circles. Dax fired wildly. His score dropped. I stopped casting. "He gave up," someone shouted. I waited. Fast rails returned each disc to the same point sooner. The pattern became simple. 1 disc crossed my range every 2 breaths. I raised my hand again. Blue, blue, blue. At the final minute, my score reached 88. Dax had 87. I drank the last tonic I needed and spent the final units through Candle Spark. My lifetime total reached 1,000. The hidden voice confirmed the 10th permanent increase. My maximum mana became 20. The public crystal flashed so brightly that every bronze disc stopped. 20 hovered above my name. Yesterday, it had shown 10. The crowd did not laugh this time. They roared. Students rushed to the arena rail. Kitchen workers waved flower-covered hats from the projection hall. Pavo stood on his bench and shouted that the Royal Food Office had trained me personally. Dax stared at the final score, 88 to 87. His 320 mana had lost to my 20, not because 20 was stronger, because I had spent every unit with purpose, while he had thrown fire at the room until the room became tired. The ranking board recalculated our trial results. My name climbed from the last position to 89th, 11 places in one afternoon. Dax remained near the top, but a red mark appeared beside his precision score. The crowd saw it. His servants saw it. The merchants watching through the public crystal saw it. He took the gold coin from the judge's table and walked toward me. For a moment I thought he would refuse. Then he pressed it into my palm. "This changes nothing," he said. "It changes my balance." Pavo laughed first. The hall followed. Dax looked as if he wanted the floor to open. After yesterday's lamps and today's score, the floor probably wanted to help. I now held 120 silver after the cost of the tonics. My maximum had doubled. My name was no longer last. Havel walked onto the platform while the crowd still shouted. He did not congratulate me. "Nolan's result requires a safety examination," he announced. On the 7th day of term, he will report to the Western Recycling Chamber for live mana feeder sanitation. The cheering weakened. Lena went pale. Mana feeders were monsters used to consume dangerous magical waste. Experienced maintenance teams entered that chamber with shields, ropes, and healers. Havel pinned the assignment to the public board. He wanted witnesses to see that it was official. Pavo pushed through the crowd and read the bottom line. "Expected survival rate," he said slowly, 12%. Havel looked directly at me. "You wanted more opportunities to spend mana." The students around the board stopped speaking. I folded the assignment and put it into my pocket beside Dax's gold coin. "Thank you," I said. Havel's smile returned. He thought I had accepted a death sentence. I had just noticed that the chamber contained its own restoration network. On the 7th day, the Academy sent my 40 mana body into a chamber full of monsters that ate mana. Havel called it a safety examination because attempted murder sounded rude on official paper. The previous 4 days had been quiet, which meant Havel did not try to kill me where anyone could prove it. I repaired kitchen runes before breakfast, spent mana on candle spark after lessons, and emptied my core until the cold reached my bones. Every coin I earned went into weak tonics, salt broth, and access to legal recovery coils. By the dawn of the 7th day, I had spent 3,000 mana in total. My maximum reserve was 40. 40 was 1/5 of the novice average and 4 times my awakening result. Students checked whether I had grown or exploded. Pavo wagered 1 copper on growth and respected both outcomes. Lena checked my reserve with 3 different prisms while we walked toward the western chamber. 40, she said. Stable. You sound disappointed. I am trying to understand how a stable, impossible thing works. Slowly. The western recycling chamber stood below the academy wall. Black pipes entered its roof. Magical waste from every training hall flowed through those pipes, and mana feeders consumed it before it poisoned the ground. Most mana feeders were small blue slimes. A healthy one was the size of a soup bowl. An old one could swallow a horse and still look hungry. The public gallery was full of students, maintenance workers, and 3 city officials. Projection crystals carried the examination to the courtyard. Havel wanted my death to look like a lesson. He met me at the iron gate. You may withdraw, he said loudly. Withdrawal ends your provisional enrollment, but no one will call you a coward. Dax stood with the other combat students. He did not laugh this time. What is the work reward? I asked. Havel's eye twitched. Any feeder gel you recover belongs to you. And the core of a mature feeder? There is no mature feeder in the chamber. Lena looked at the control board. 1 release rune had been covered with wax. Then you will not mind adding the core to the reward, I said. The city officials nodded. Havel could not refuse without making the crowd curious. Fine. I spent my remaining 1 gold and 20 silver on copper wire, drying salt, boots, a hammer, and bitter tonic. The crowd saw an empty purse and maintenance tools instead of a sword. Their jokes sounded nervous now. Lena caught my sleeve before the gate opened. The main restoration line carries 5,000 units from the waste battery. It is supposed to support a full maintenance team. The control valve is inside. Can Havel close it from outside? Yes. Can I open it from inside? If you reach the north wall. She pressed a folded map into my hand. Her fingers stayed against mine for a moment. Do not make me prove an impossible corpse is stable, she said. That would be difficult. Nolan. I will come back. The gate opened. Warm, wet air touched my face. The chamber floor sloped toward a dark basin. Dozens of blue slimes moved between piles of broken spell stones. Each one made a soft, sucking noise. I stepped inside. The gate slammed behind me. Havel's voice came through the projection rune. The candidate must recover 20 measures of feeder gel within 2 hours. External help is forbidden. The first slime noticed me. It rolled across the floor with the speed of an angry pillow. I cast Candle Spark at the wall beside it. The orange thread struck the stone. The slime turned toward the magical heat and swallowed it. 1 mana left my core. The hidden count rose. I cast again, farther to the left. The slime followed. Mana fed into a monster through a completed spell still counted as spent. That was the first useful answer of the day. I guided 3 slimes into a dry channel, poured 1 bag of salt behind them, and closed the iron grate. The salt pulled water from their bodies. They shrank, leaving lumps of clear blue gel. More slimes rolled from the basin. I led them into separate channels. A mana feeder cared about magic, not dignity. After 40 casts, my reserve emptied. Cold tightened around my ribs. I reached the north wall and found the restoration valve. Havel had locked it with an instructor seal. The gallery could see the lock through the projection. Whispers spread above me. Why is the safety line sealed? The rules promised restoration access. Havel leaned over the control rail. The candidate must demonstrate independent endurance. Lena raised the signed rules. The safety line is mandatory. Sit down, apprentice. I wrapped 1 copper wire around the valve and the other around a hot waste pipe. Then I cast Candle Spark into the old release bead between them. The bead woke. The instructor seal remained closed, but the emergency release opened beneath it. Blue light poured into my core. 40 mana arrived in less than a breath. Pain struck my chest. A core could hold only its maximum. Extra mana would tear the channels around it. I pointed both hands at the nearest slime and held Candle Spark instead of releasing it. The spell became a steady orange thread. Mana flowed in through the valve and out through the spell. The feeder swallowed every unit. The hidden count began moving without pause. 41, 42, 43. Each unit completed the same simple magical effect. The sustained flame counted. The slime grew from the size of a bowl to the size of a barrel. It wobbled with happiness. I had never seen a monster look so pleased to become a problem. He is feeding it, Dax shouted from the gallery. I noticed, Havel said. Why? Because he is an idiot. My lifetime expenditure reached 4,000. My maximum reserve became 50. The collar crystal around my neck projected the number above the chamber. The crowd exploded into noise. Havel grabbed the outer controls and shut down the public projection. The image vanished from the courtyard. 1 breath later, it returned. Lena stood beside a second control prism with ink glowing on her fingers. The food office owns a backup line, she told him. Pava waved from beside her. Royal soup requires reliable communication. The city officials moved closer to the rail. I kept feeding the slime until the next threshold. My maximum became 60. It was now taller than I was. The other feeders gathered around it. They merged, one after another, forming a blue mass that covered half the north wall. A mouth opened in its center. Its toothless mouth pulled mana from the room hard enough to dim the lamps. The wax-covered rune on the outer control board cracked. A deeper gate opened beneath the basin. Something huge moved below. Havel stepped away from the board too quickly. The mature feeder rose from the dark water. It was not the size of a horse. It was the size of a house that had eaten a horse. Old weapon heads, broken shields, and bones floated inside its body. A silver control seal shone near its center. The gallery went silent. Dax turned toward Havel. You said there was no mature feeder. It broke containment, Havel replied. The release rune has your signature. Lena's backup projection enlarged the cracked wax. Beneath it, a red rune formed Havel's name. Every person in the academy saw it. The mature feeder rushed me. I opened the restoration valve fully. Mana slammed into my core. I sent it through candle spark into the copper waste pipe beneath the floor. One thread of fire became 10. 10 became 50. The spell remained weak, but the iron grate carried its heat across the chamber. The floor turned red. Small feeders hissed and fled toward the dry channels. The mature feeder rolled forward, too large to stop. Water boiled along its lower edge. My lifetime expenditure passed 6,000. Maximum reserve became 70. The public crystal announced each change. Students shouted the number before the light finished forming. 65. 68. 70. Havel ordered the guards to end the projection. The city officials ordered the guards to leave it running. The mature feeder struck the north wall. Blue liquid covered my boots. It pulled at the mana in my core. I pushed that mana into the heated pipe before it could take it. The spell counted every unit I released willingly. The monster could not steal what I spent first. Steam filled the chamber. The feeder rose around me like a wave. I drove the iron hammer through the hot floor grate and opened the waste channel beneath it. Boiling liquid fell into the channel. The monster sagged. I maintained candle spark. My arms burned. My chest felt packed with ice and fire at the same time. The restoration line refilled me. The copper pipe emptied me. The feeder tried to swallow both. The hidden total reached 7,000. My maximum reserve became 80. The mature feeder burst. A wall of blue gel struck the viewing glass. Students screamed and jumped backward. Pavo remained in place. The glass held, and he tasted one drop that slid through a ventilation gap. "Needs salt," he announced. The entire gallery began laughing. Inside the chamber, blue gel covered me from head to boots. I looked like a man who had lost a fight with a dessert. The feeder's dark core rolled across the hot grate and stopped at my feet. Beside it lay the silver control seal from its body. I picked up both. Havel's full name was engraved on the seal. The backup projection showed it above the academy courtyard, larger than a carriage. No one laughed now. The inner gate opened after 2 hours. I walked into the gallery carrying 24 measures of gel, one mature core, and the seal that proved Havel had released it. The students moved aside. 6 days earlier, they had moved away because I had 10 mana. Now they moved because the collar crystal above my head displayed 80. Havel waited beside the judges. His face had gone gray. "The candidate caused an unauthorized merge," he said. "His result is invalid." I placed the silver control seal on the table. "Is your name invalid too?" The city officials examined it. Lena projected the rune log. It showed the exact moment Havel had opened the mature feeder gate, 6 breaths after I entered. Dax stepped out of the student line. "He ordered me to carry the sealed control box here this morning," he said. Havel stared at him. "Your family will hear about this." "My family is already watching." Dax pointed to the largest projection crystal. A man in a red merchant coat stood within the image. His expression suggested that Dax would soon experience a private lecture powerful enough to count as fire magic. The gallery began shouting for Havel's removal. Havel reached for the seal. The chamber door opened behind him. Pressure from the overheated pipes released one final wave of feeder gel. It struck Havel in the back and carried him across the judge's table. He landed in front of the student benches, covered from head to foot in blue slime. His silver whistle remained visible on top of his head. Pavo considered him carefully. "Still needs salt." The laughter shook dust from the ceiling. Dean Morin arrived while 2 guards helped Havel stand. The dean looked at the projection, the city officials, the engraved seal, and the students chanting for an arrest. He could not hide this failure. "Instructor Havel is suspended pending a city inquiry," Morin announced. He removed Havel's academy badge in front of everyone. The same man who had thrown candle spark at my feet now stood without rank, dripping blue gel, while 300 witnesses repeated his name. My own name climbed on the ranking board. The solo chamber clear, recovered gel, and mature core moved me from 89th to 24th among first-year students. The city appraiser valued the feeder gel at 2 gold and the mature core at 12. Havel had agreed publicly that both belonged to me. Morin could not change the reward with 3 officials watching. 14 gold coins entered my empty purse. I had started the day with 40 mana, spent every silver I owned, and held the 89th rank. I ended it with 80 mana, 14 gold, and the 24th rank. The numbers were becoming less polite. Pavo roasted 2 chickens for dinner. Their skin was dark and crisp from garlic butter. Soft potatoes filled the pan beneath them and drank the meat juices. He served honey carrots, thick gravy, and hot broth with green herbs. I sat in the furnace kitchen wearing borrowed clothes. My own robe stood upright in a bucket because the feeder gel had become emotionally attached to it. Lena wrapped clean cloth around my burned palms. "You promised to come back," she said. I did. Covered in monster. The promise did not include a condition report. She tightened the bandage. "That hurt." "Good. Your hands still work." Pavo placed a chicken leg on my plate. Dax stood awkwardly in the doorway. No servant followed him. He wore a plain academy coat. "My father canceled my private training account," he said. Pavo bit into a potato. "A tragedy. Sit down before the gravy gets cold." Dax sat at the far end of the table. He did not apologize. He did explain that Havel had promised his family the top scholarship slot before the written examination. My first-place score had threatened that agreement. My 10 mana result had solved the problem, so Havel had refused a second test. "Why tell me?" I asked. "Because he tried to kill you after I helped him," Dax said. "That makes me a fool." "I dislike being a fool more than I dislike you." "A useful beginning." He looked at the roast chicken. "Am I allowed to eat?" Pavo pushed the gravy toward him. "Confession without dinner becomes theater. Eat." For a little while, the furnace kitchen was warm and quiet. Crisp chicken skin cracked beneath my fork. Butter and garlic soaked into the potatoes. Lena stole the last honey carrot from my plate and claimed it had crossed the border. Then, Dean Morin entered. He waited until Dax and Pavo left. 2 contract clerks stood behind him. "Nolan," he said, "your ability presents opportunities and dangers. Starfall Academy is prepared to protect you." 1 clerk placed a contract on the table. The Academy would restore my room and scholarship. In return, it would own every spell I developed, take 70% of my earnings, control my travel, and receive the right to perform invasive examinations on my core. "You forgot my blood," I said. Moren frowned. "What?" "The contract takes everything else. I thought you might want a bottle." Lena made a small sound that might have been a cough. Morin leaned closer. "The capital audit is not optional. Inspector Roth will arrive on the 30th day. Without Academy protection, a mutable core may be classified as a national weapon. And with your protection, it becomes Academy property." At least he answered honestly. I pushed the contract back. "No." Morin's calm expression hardened. "Then you will prove your right to remain free at the first circle trial on the 30th day. Place first, and the city charter will recognize you as an independent mage. Fail, and custody passes to the capital." Agreed. He had expected fear. Numbers disappointed him too. Moren and his clerks left. Lena pulled the contract close. A hidden line appeared when she warmed the paper over a candle. Her face changed. "Nolan, the capital clause does not say imprisonment." She turned the page toward me. The final sentence authorized living core removal if my reserve changed again. My measuring prism showed 80. The first circle trial was 23 days away. Inspector Roth was coming to collect whatever remained of me. On the 30th day, I entered the first circle trial with 220 mana and 14 gold. During the previous 23 quiet days, I had repaired runes and accepted every safe job that consumed magic. 46 gold had entered my purse and gone straight back into tonics, recovery access, and medical salt. My money remained 14 gold, but 21,000 total expenditure had raised my reserve above the novice average. The entire city seemed to have come to watch what I would do with it. Merchants, students, and kitchen workers filled the Starfall arena. Thousands more watched through the public projection in the market. Dax remained the favorite. His maximum reserve was 320. He had trained without Havel for 3 weeks and discovered that listening could improve a person faster than shouting. He met me beneath the arena arch in a plain red coat. "My father now reviews all my spending," he said. "A powerful curse." Dax laughed. It was the first time his laughter did not require someone beneath it. Lena approached carrying a wooden case of measuring prisms. She wore the silver sash of an official rune observer. "Moren changed the restoration limits last night," she said quietly. "The reservoirs now hold 10,000 mana each. The course requires only 9,000. "Exactly." He left enough to overload a contestant's core. Can you prove he changed them? If he activates the extra flow. Dean Morin appeared on the high platform before I could answer. His formal robe was white, his staff was gold, and his smile had been prepared by professionals. Citizens of Starfall, he announced, today our finest first-year mages will attempt the 100-bell course. The winner will receive 100 gold and independent mage status under the city charter. The crowd cheered. Morin raised one hand. Because of recent irregularities, Nolan must also accept a safety bond before competing. A clerk carried the same contract into the arena. The public projection enlarged its first page. The hidden clauses remained hidden. Sign, Morin said. The Academy will guarantee your safety. The previous guarantee included a mature mana feeder. The western rail erupted in laughter. Morin's smile remained fixed, but his fingers tightened around his staff. Refusal may concern the city council. One of the officials from the recycling chamber stood in the front balcony. The charter does not require an academy bond. Let the boy compete. Other officials agreed. Merchants began shouting that they had paid to see a trial, not a contract reading. Morin could not force me without exposing the hidden terms. I pushed the pen away. No. The public projection showed the single word on my lips. The crowd repeated it. Morin returned to his platform while thousands of voices used his arena to reject him. The first bell rang. The 100-bell course contained 10 circular rings. Each ring held 10 iron bells and 1 restoration well. A contestant had to draw mana from the well, send exactly 90 units through each bell, and move to the next ring. Too little left the bell silent. Too much cracked it. The complete course required 9,000 mana. Most first years entered in teams of 5. The best attempted it alone. Dax and I were the only solo contestants. He entered the eastern lane. I took the western lane. 20 other students formed teams behind us. At Morin's signal, the restoration wells opened. Dax used a controlled flame line. Red fire wrapped around his first bell. He fed 90 mana into it, and the bell released a clear note. I placed 2 fingers against my first bell and used candle spark. The weak orange thread entered the iron. I sustained it and counted the flow. 90 units. The bell rang. The crowd answered with a roar. 1 month earlier, Candle Spark had been the last spell in a discarded chest. Now thousands of people shouted each time its tiny flame woke another bell. Dax moved faster through the first ring. His larger reserve let him power 3 bells before using the well. I could power only 2. But every unit I spent served 2 purposes. It rang a bell. It also moved me toward permanent growth. After the first 1,000 mana, my maximum became 230. After the second 1,000, I reached 240. Dax looked across the lanes. You are getting faster. My cup is getting larger. That is not how cups work. You trained under Havel. I forgive the confusion. He nearly overfilled a bell because he laughed. At the third ring, one of the 5-person teams cracked 2 bells. Their score dropped. My 100 bells remained whole. At the 4th ring, Dax led me by 1 bell. At the 5th, my lifetime expenditure reached 24,000. My reserve became 250. Every betting board in the city rang at once. People who had wagered on that exact threshold threw their hats into the air. Pavo stood beneath the western rail with both hands raised. 1 copper becomes 12, he shouted. The furnace always provides. Lena leaned over the observer's table. The flow is normal so far. Morin spoke to the chief judge. The judge shook his head. Morin placed his dean's seal against the arena controls. The 6th restoration well changed color. It should have released 200 mana at a steady rate. It released 500 at once. The impact struck my core like a hammer. I dropped to one knee. The crowd gasped. Blue light swelled beneath my skin. My core could hold 250. The remaining mana had nowhere to go. If it stayed, my channels would tear. Morin rose from his seat. The candidate has lost control. Clear the arena. Lena slammed her hand onto the observer prism. The dean opened the reserve gate. His red signature appeared above the arena. Morin tried to close the projection. Pavo held up a food office relay. Royal Soup is watching again. The signature remained visible. I pressed both palms against the iron floor and cast Candle Spark through the arena frame. The spell entered every unpowered bell in my ring. One weak flame became a network of orange lines. I spent the excess mana as fast as the well delivered it. The first bell rang, then the second. Then all 10 bells in the sixth ring rang together. The combined sound hit the arena like thunder. My lifetime expenditure crossed another threshold. Maximum reserve became 260, then 270. The overflow weakened. My growing core held more with every 100 I spent. Morin had tried to burst a small cup by pouring in a river. The cup was growing while he poured. The crowd understood before the judges did. They began chanting my name. I stood. Every bell in my ring was whole. Dax had stopped in the eastern lane. He stared at Morin's signature above the arena. "Continue," Morin ordered. Dax looked at me. "Can you stand?" "Yes." "Then I am still ahead. By 1 bell." He grinned and ran. That was the correct choice. I did not need someone to surrender for me. I needed Morin to watch me finish the trial he had rigged. The 7th ring demanded speed. Bells rotated behind iron screens. Dax used short bursts of flameline. I sent Candlespark through the course rails and touched each bell when its screen opened. My spell had almost no force. It also had almost no delay. I caught him at the 73rd bell. We reached the 8th restoration well together. "Your reserve?" he asked. 274. "Mine is still larger?" "You should ask for a refund." He laughed again. The crowd heard it through the lane crystals and laughed with him. Morin did not. The 8th ring contained mirrored bells. A flame reflected between them. Dax's spell struck 2 bells with excess force. Hairline cracks appeared. He lost 4 points. My single orange thread entered 1 bell at a time. The audience grew quiet enough to hear the final notes. My maximum reserve became 280. At the 9th ring, 3 teams withdrew from exhaustion. Healers carried them from the course. Dax drank a restoration potion. I used the well and continued spending. My stomach twisted from weeks of tonics, but no poison entered me today. The arena supplied every unit for free. That was the new lesson. Mana drawn from an external reservoir still became my expenditure if it passed through my core and completed my spell. The Academy had built a course with 9,000 units of training fuel and invited me to use it in public. Morin had prepared a trap shaped exactly like a gift. At 290 maximum mana, I reached the final ring. Dax entered 3 breaths later. 10 silver bells hung above a shallow pool. They moved without a pattern. Each required 90 mana. The restoration well released only enough for 1 contestant to refill at a time. Dax reached it first. He placed his hand over the water. Then he stepped aside. "You were ahead," I said. "Morin paid Havel to remove you before the first test," he replied. "My father found the payment this morning. If I take the well first, Morin will claim you lost fairly." His words passed through the lane crystal. The entire arena heard them. Morin stood so quickly that his chair fell backward. Dax's father appeared in the merchant balcony and raised a copied account book. The public projection showed a payment from the dean's private fund to Havel on the night before awakening. Witnesses began shouting. Morin struck the control board with his staff. "The trial is suspended." The bells kept moving. The city official in the front balcony raised the charter seal. "Only the chief judge may suspend a public trial. Continue." The chief judge looked at the thousands of citizens in the arena and the even larger crowd in the market. "Continue," he said. I touched the restoration well. My core filled. I cast Candlespark. The first silver bell rang. Dax used the well after me and powered his first bell. We moved together. The 92nd bell rang for me, then the 93rd. Dax closed the distance with flameline. Red light crossed the pool. His 95th bell rang before mine. The crowd counted every note. 96. 97. My lifetime expenditure reached 29,000. Maximum reserve became 300. The arena shook with cheers. Dax powered his 99th bell. The flame reflected from the silver surface and struck the last bell with him. Too much mana entered it. A crack appeared. His score fell by 2. I sent 1 thin orange thread through my final bells. 99, 100. The last clear note crossed the city. My total expenditure reached 30,000 at the same moment. My maximum reserve became 310. The public ranking board moved my name to first place among the first-year students. For several breaths, Dax looked at his cracked bell. Then he bowed to me. The boy who had laughed at 10 mana bowed in front of the entire city to the student with 310. The crowd rose. Dax did not look humiliated when he straightened. He looked lighter. Morin looked like he had swallowed his gold staff. The chief judge presented me with a white charter badge. By completion of the 100-bell course, Nolan is recognized as an independent mage of Starfall. The city officials awarded the promised 100 gold. They also ordered the academy to return 6 gold in withheld scholarship funds and restore my room. My purse rose from 14 gold to 120. My strength, money, and public status had all reached new records in the time it took Morin to lose his chair. He came down from the platform before the applause ended. "This result is void," he said. "The candidate manipulated academy equipment." "Your signature opened the extra flow," Lena replied from the observer's table. "You have no authority here. The city charter gave me authority when you tried to rupture a student's core." She projected the restoration log beside Havel's payment record. Morin's name appeared on both. The crowd began chanting for his removal. Morin raised his staff and activated the academy's mana clamp around my lane. Bands of white light closed around my chest and arms. The device was designed to drain a dangerous mage and force him to kneel. I remained standing. The clamp pulled mana from my core. I sent that mana through Candlespark into the iron course. 100 bells rang again. The returning force traveled backward through the clamp. Morin's staff split down the center. White light struck him in the chest and lifted him from the platform. He crossed the judge's table, passed over 2 guards, and landed in the ceremonial victory cake prepared behind the western rail. Blue icing covered his white robe. A small sugar crown settled on his head. Pavo studied him from the first row. "This one needs less salt." The laughter could be heard beyond the city wall. Morin tried to stand. The cake collapsed under him. City guards removed his dean's badge in front of the projection crystals. By sunset, copies of the image had appeared in every tavern window. Children placed sugar crowns on puddles and called them Dean Morin. I returned to my restored scholarship room above the east courtyard. It had 1 narrow bed, 1 wooden table, and a brass stove that complained whenever Pavo touched it. He fried riverfish in lemon butter. The skin became crisp while the white meat remained soft. Lena cooked rice with green herbs and small pieces of roasted pepper. Dax brought warm bread from the market and claimed he had purchased it with his own money. "Did your father approve?" I asked. "He required a receipt." Pavo filled bowls with buttery rice and placed a whole fish in the center of the table. The room smelled of lemon, toasted bread, and the first quiet evening I had experienced since awakening. I bought Pavo a chair with a padded back. He complained that comfort weakened a man, then refused to stand for the rest of dinner. Lena placed the white charter badge beside my plate. "1 month ago, they removed your silver scholarship badge," she said. "This one is heavier. It means the academy cannot sell your custody. Then it is useful too." Outside, people still celebrated around the ranking board. My name remained at the top. 310 mana glowed beside it. I had a room, 120 gold, and legal independence. For half an hour, that felt like victory. Then black carriages entered the courtyard. Every academy bell stopped. A tall man stepped from the first carriage. He wore a black capital uniform with no decoration except a silver chain around his right hand. The measuring stones near the gate dimmed as he passed. His reserve appeared on the public board. 5,000. Inspector Roth looked up at my window. "Nolan," he called, "by order of the Crown Mana Registry, your living core is under national observation." The celebration below went silent. Roth held up a black warrant. "You have until the 180th day after awakening. If your reserve reaches 1,500, the city charter becomes void and I will remove the core myself." My current maximum was 310. The hidden count inside me had never stopped. For the first time, growing stronger had become a countdown to execution. On the 180th day, my reserve reached 1,590 while I was warming a butter knife. The knife became hot. The final unit left my core. A calm voice confirmed that my lifetime expenditure had reached 158,000, and every ordinary professor at Starfall Academy became weaker than a piece of breakfast equipment. Pavo looked at the glowing knife in my hand. "If you cut the bread with that, I will remove your core before Roth does." I let the metal cool. We ate breakfast in the old North Mana Tower. I had leased the abandoned building 3 months earlier because its underground reservoir could hold 60,000 units. The roof leaked, the stairs complained, and one wall leaned toward the street like it wanted to hear gossip. It was home. Pavo toasted thick slices of brown bread over the stove. He covered them with yellow butter and dark berry jam. Lena fried eggs with soft centers and crisp edges. Dax brought white cheese, smoked meat, and a receipt for both. "Your father still checks?" I asked. "He has expanded the curse. I now submit a weekly spending report." "You could try humility. The report is easier." Lena placed the measuring prism against my wrist. 1,590, she said. No one spoke for a moment. At the beginning of the term, the strongest classroom professor had 1,450 mana. Department heads and Dean Morin had possessed more, but ordinary teachers had seemed impossibly distant. 6 months later, I had passed all of them. I had also crossed Roth's execution line by 90. Roth had spent 5 months restricting my travel and measuring me every week. I had spent them repairing wards and powering workshops. Those jobs earned 1,800 gold. After investing 1,260 in recovery crystals and 120 in living costs, my chest held 540 gold, and the tower reservoir held 51,000 mana. Roth knew about the tower. He did not know Lena had connected its output to every public defense line in the city. She had worked on the design for 90 days. The final rune map covered half the breakfast table. "The audit begins at noon," she said. "If Roth activates a suppression field, the tower connection may fail." "How long can you keep it open?" 1 minute if he notices. 10 if Dax creates a distraction." Dax swallowed a piece of cheese. "Why am I the distraction?" Pavo looked at his red coat. Nature assigned the role. The tower filled with laughter. Outside, citizens moved toward the central square carrying sugar bells, wooden candles, and blue feeder toys. Today the city would react to the number Roth had chosen as my limit. Lena rolled up the rune map. "You could leave before noon. The southern gate is still open." "Roth would punish the city." "Probably." "Then I stay." She nodded. She had watched me spend 1 mana at a time until my hands shook. She knew I stayed because other people would pay if I ran. Pavo wrapped 2 pieces of buttered bread in cloth and pushed them into my coat. "Execution days are long." "That is not encouraging." "It is breakfast. Breakfast does not need to encourage you. It needs to remain inside you." At noon, I walked into the central square. More than 20,000 people filled the streets and balconies. Beside the ranking pillar, professors displayed reserves from 900 to 1,450. Then my number appeared. 1,590. The shout rolled across the square like a physical force. Professors looked up at my number. Some smiled. Some stepped away. One old teacher removed his hat and bowed. The first years who had laughed at 10 mana now claimed they had always believed in me. Dax admitted he had compared me to a bath heater, then bowed when the crowd laughed. Inspector Roth entered with 12 black uniformed mages, a silver chain wrapped around his right hand, his 5,000 mana pressed against the square. Conversations died wherever he looked. He stopped before me. "Nolan, at awakening, you possessed 10 mana. Yes. Today you possess 1,590. The breakfast knife confirms it." A few people laughed. Roth did not. "The Crown Registry has controlled unstable cores for 200 years, he said. "The last unregistered growth mage created an army, burned 3 cities, and forced children to feed his reserve. We will not permit another mana war." He did not hate me. He feared a number without a ceiling. Fear could wear a clean uniform and still carry a knife. Roth held out a black contract. "Join the registry. You will receive 10,000 gold each year, a capital estate, and the rank of royal weapon. Your training, travel, and family contacts will remain under supervision." "And my core?" "Property of the crown." The public crystals carried every word. "No," I said. Roth's expression did not change. "Then the observation warrant takes effect." The 12 capital mages formed a circle around me. City officials raised the white charter seal. "Nolan is an independent mage." "The charter protects reserves below 1,500, Roth replied. "He is 90 units beyond your law." The crowd began shouting. Roth lifted his chained hand. 7 black pillars rose and cut the city's mana lines. The fountain stopped, the lamps went dark, and Starfall's golden barrier flickered. Lena looked toward the North Tower. He isolated the entire defense grid. Roth heard her. Core removal requires a closed field. The interruption will last less than 10 minutes. A warning horn sounded from the western wall. Dark shapes moved along the ridge as the ash beasts noticed the failing barrier. Roth glanced at the wall. My mobile reservoir will maintain the inner district. Begin extraction. Blue light protected the inner district. The workers' quarter, student housing, and Pavo's kitchen remained outside. Extend it, I said. The mobile reservoir is reserved for capital personnel. There are children outside your dome. The procedure will be brief. An ash hound pushed its claws through the outer barrier. The wall projection showed it, and panic spread. Roth pointed at me. The silver chain uncoiled from his hand and wrapped around my chest. It began pulling mana from my core. I cast Candle Spark. One orange thread touched the white charter seal held by the city officials. The seal connected to the public defense network. My mana entered the barrier and strengthened it above one street. Mana spent to protect another person still counted as mine. That was the most important answer Infinite Reserve had given me. Lena, I said. She struck her measuring prism against the platform. Orange runes spread beneath the square, crossed the streets, and reached the North Tower. Roth's head turned. Close that line. His capital mages moved toward Lena. Dax threw his red coat into the air and fired flameline beneath it. 12 trained mages watched the burning coat for one confused moment before smoke forced them backward. Nature assigned the role, he shouted. Pavo rang a kitchen bell from the crowd. The North Tower reservoir opened. Mana traveled through the underground line and entered my core. 1,590 units filled me. I spent them through Candle Spark, lighting the northern barrier gold. The reservoir filled me again, and the eastern district lit. The public measuring network displayed my reserve and lifetime expenditure above the square. Lena had designed it so every person could witness the change. My maximum rose to 1,600, then 1,610. The crowd stopped running and looked up. Each 100 mana I spent added one more permanent unit. Each increase allowed more mana through my core during the next cycle. The tower reservoir fell. My maximum climbed. Roth tightened the silver chain. Stop casting. The chain drained 100 mana from me. I sent it into the barrier before it could reach him. No. The answer crossed every public crystal. The western wall glowed brighter. Ash hounds struck it and burned. Roth pulled harder. The chain consumed his own mana to overpower mine. His reserve dropped from 5,000 to 4,800. The tower filled me again. I emptied myself into the barrier, and my maximum passed 1,700. The 12 capital mages broke through Dax's smoke. Lena shifted the underground runes before they could close them. Each mage sealed one line. She opened another through a fountain, a kitchen pipe, or a public lamp. Moren had ignored the network because its tools belonged to cooks, cleaners, and maintenance workers. Those workers now guarded every relay. Pavo raised his kitchen token. Hundreds of bronze furnace tokens rose across the square. Royal soup requires reliable power, he said. The workers opened every line at once. Mana struck my core like a storm. I held Candle Spark with both hands. The tiny orange flame entered the charter seal and divided across the city. One thread reached every barrier tower. My lifetime expenditure passed 170,000. Maximum reserve became 1,710. It passed 180,000. Maximum reserve became 1,810. The numbers moved faster than the crowd could shout them. Roth's chain shook. He had 5,000 mana, but his spell had to fight my output while I drew from a reservoir built over 5 months. His reserve did not refill. Mine emptied and filled again. The difference between us was no longer raw strength. It was preparation. An ash wyvern appeared above the western ridge. Its wings covered 3 houses with shadow. It struck the outer barrier and opened a crack wide enough for its head. The city defense captain shouted that the western tower needed 10,000 mana. Only 12,000 remained in my reservoir. Roth looked at the wyvern, then at his mobile reservoir inside the protected dome. The capital supply cannot be released without authorization, he said. You are the inspector, I replied. Not for this purpose. Then your title is decorative. The crowd repeated that too. Roth's calm finally broke. He drove both hands into the silver chain. The spell forced me to one knee. Pain crossed my chest. Mana tore through my channels in both directions. The tower tried to fill me. Roth tried to empty me. The barrier demanded everything. I pressed one hand against the stone platform. Candle spark continued. My maximum reached 1,900. The western barrier closed around the wyvern's neck. It screamed and beat its wings. The defense captain aimed the city's old dawn cannon. The weapon had not fired in 30 years. Its ignition rune required 1 mana. Its main chamber required 10,000 more. I had spent my life being given small flames beside large machines. I understood the arrangement. Lena opened the final tower line. The remaining 12,000 mana entered my core in waves. I sent 10,000 into the dawn cannon and 1 into its ignition rune. Candle spark lit the weapon. White fire crossed the valley. The ash wyvern disappeared inside the beam. The ridge behind it split. Every ash hound below turned and fled. The barrier sealed over Starfall. Silence held the city. Then the final growth confirmations arrived. My lifetime expenditure had reached 209,000. My maximum reserve became 2,100. The number appeared above the square. 20,000 witnesses saw it. Roth's silver chain cracked. The returning force pulled him forward. His boots slid across the platform. He tried to release the spell, but his own seal had locked it until extraction ended. The chain snapped. Inspector Roth fell to both knees in front of me. His 5,000 mana reserve showed less than 100 remaining. My number remained 2,100 and had already begun refilling through natural recovery. The public crystals caught his black uniform, his broken chain, and the independent mage he had tried to force down still standing before him. No one laughed immediately. Roth looked toward the restored barrier and the white trail left by the dawn cannon. "You spent 51,000 mana protecting a city that could not protect you," he said. "Yes." "Why?" "It was available." Pavo's laugh broke the silence. The city followed. Roth lowered his head. Whether it was defeat, exhaustion, or respect did not matter to the witnesses. The capital inspector had come to make me kneel. He knelt in front of the entire city instead. The city council removed his suppression pillars. They awarded me 140 gold for restoring the barrier and firing the dawn cannon. They also transferred permanent ownership of the North Mana Tower to me. My purse rose from 540 gold to 680. My leased shelter became my home. My public title changed from Anomalous Student to Defender of Starfall. Power, resources, and status rose together once more. The square became a feast before sunset. Bakers carried out hot loaves. Pavo roasted beef ribs with black pepper and garlic until the meat pulled from the bone. Large pans held buttered potatoes, honey carrots, and onions browned in meat juice. I sat on the fountain edge with a plate balanced on my knees. After spending 51,000 mana, the first bite of bread disappeared before I remembered to taste it. Pavo added 2 ribs to my plate. Slowly, "Your stomach still has a maximum." Dax had lost most of his eyebrows in the smoke distraction. Children followed him through the square and asked whether Flameline always attacked its owner. "Only at an advanced level," he told them. Lena sat beside me and placed a brass key in my hand. "The tower deed lists 1 owner," she said. I gave the key back to her. "Then the deed is incomplete." She looked at the key, then at me. "Is this because I understand the reservoir?" "It is because you saw 11 when everyone else still saw 10. Her fingers closed around the key. For the first time in 6 months, she forgot to check my measuring prism. The city bells began to ring, not the bright bells of celebration. The black bell beneath the academy answered them. Every projection crystal in the square went dark. A man's face appeared above the crowd. He had white hair, a narrow crown seal, and eyes that did not move when he looked at 20,000 people. His reserve appeared beside him. 20,000. Inspector Roth stood despite his exhaustion. "High Auditor Amon." Amon's voice reached every street. "Nolan has rejected lawful custody, defeated a crown inspector, and demonstrated unrestricted core growth. The registry now offers 10,000 gold for his living capture." The feast became still. 7 black lines appeared across the sky. They stretched from the capital toward Starfall and closed around the city's distant mana rivers. One after another, the rivers went dark. Amon continued. At midnight, Starfall will be permanently removed from the Royal Mana network. Surrender Nolan, or power your walls without the crown. The projection vanished. The North Tower reservoir was empty. The city's barrier required 1 million mana each day. I looked at the number above my name. 2,100. For the first time since awakening, it felt exactly like 10.